it into the ad.
Sorry,
Turned
yeah,
it,
sorry,
it's okay. Turned into the ad that you can see. Well, you can just see a shot of it here. It's probably worth checking it out and having a look. It's not the best ad I've ever seen, but I did think it was an interesting way of, and what I'm quite interested in throughout the talks you'll see is the idea of AI and humans, creative humans working alongside each other. And I thought this was quite a nice example of that, in that the AI generated the script, and then a film director took it and made it into something that worked quite well. I think so that was before the world of GPT-3, and then GPT-3 came in and seemed to change a lot. And definitely from my own experience of it, I was quite shocked at the quality of the writing that was coming out. So you can basically put a prompt in, and it will continue that prompt. If it's a question that you ask, it will respond with an answer. And about a year ago, this article came out just after GPT-3 was released. And it was an article in The Guardian that had been completely written by GPT-3. It kind of annoyed me slightly, this headline, and I think that this is kind of indicative of generally of how AI and creativity is displayed in, and probably in the wider world as well, how AI is always portrayed in the media. And it kind of frustrates me because, one, it's not a robot that wrote that article, it's machine learning. And secondly, you know, those things about, are you scared yet, human? The whole idea of making people afraid or fearful, I think, is not necessarily helpful, because I think it's really important that people are able to talk about AI, that the conversations become wider, and that more people feel able to engage in those conversations. And I think if people feel afraid of AI, or feel that it's going to come and, you know, take away their jobs, or that it might be scary, that those conversations don't necessarily happen. And I think the media doesn't really help very much in making that a reality. So as it happens, this article was kind of cool, but if you looked in more detail at the editor's notes, it turned out that it was generated at least three times, and that humans were very much involved in piecing it all together to make the article as it is. So if you took it at face value, you might think, oh wow, AI wrote this whole piece, but in reality it was you know, humans were still quite involved in making it flow properly and work well with a narrative. So I think, in terms of where I think AI writing is, GPT-3 is definitely a huge advancement from where it was 3 years ago, but there's still a bit of a way to go. And just to show you in terms of what we worked on. So last year we worked for an innovation festival, and they wanted us to create a character and get this character to speak, and they wanted AI to be used to generate the talk. So I pulled a script together using GPT-3. So this character could make a little lightning talk basically at the event. And GPT-3 came out with some pretty complimented stuff, you know, things like this sounded very human-like. You know, the words flowed quite well, and that went into the talk. But also, in addition to that, you know, stuff like this came out as well, you know, like eat plenty of black garlic and find the papier-mâché horse. It's actually quite bonkers. And I thought at the time, you know, this stuff is also being generated at the same time as some of those very complimented lines that were coming out. And I actually put all of that in her talk. So when this character delivered the talk, I put that in as well as the other stuff, because I thought it was important for people to know that, you know, things aren't like in the Guardian article, you know, that it is still, there's still a way to go, and it's quite interesting. And I thought it was quite interesting and also quite funny. I'm no idea where the papier-mâché horse came from, but it went in there because I thought it was good fun. So that's a very whistle-stop tour of what's happening, I feel, in the world of writing and AI. This AI and inspiration is probably the most exciting place that I've been in the last 3 years. And this is some of the stuff that Ellie was talking about, the cocktails and the ice cream and the like. I guess it started for me, and the first time I saw anything like this was this project here by Philip Schmidt. He's a furniture designer, and he wanted to create an iconic 20th century chair. So what he did was, and he wanted AI to be part of that process in somehow. So he trained a GAN on a data set of hundreds and hundreds of chairs, which he sourced from Pinterest, and used that as the data set. And then it was a whole bunch of new chairs were generated. You can see on the left a couple of them there. But rather than just looking at the chairs and saying, oh, they're kind of cool, he then got his designers, human designers, brought them into the mix and said, okay, so if you look at these GAN images, what kind of thing can you curate from that? How can you use it as a starting point to do something really interesting? And so they took those GAN images, the ones that they thought were interesting, and then they did some sketches and actually created some very interesting prototype chairs. And I thought, from a creative point of view, that was really cool that using AI as that sort of basis and that starting point. So that's kind of where we started Tiny Giant with some of our explorations. And probably one of my favorite projects that we've done was creating some AI cocktails. We were at an AI event, and someone said to us, you should create some AI cocktails. And we thought, oh, that's a brilliant idea. Let's do that. So we didn't use a GAN, we used a recurrent neural network. We trained it on hundreds of cocktail recipes and generated some new cocktail recipes. And then we went to a mixologist who's obviously got an amazing palate and knows all about cocktails and what things work together. And we said, these are the recipes that we've got. You know, could you take some of them and make them into a reality? And that's what he did. So the green one there that you can see was a courgette, sour cherry and champagne cocktail. And if you'd have asked me to make it, I wouldn't have had a clue what to do with the courgette. But he took it and made this like gorgeous syrup with the courgette and made it into this really nice cocktail. And it was interesting talking to him, because when we first started working with him, he was really frightened of AI. He was saying, oh, I don't want to work with it. It's going to be loads better than me. And we were saying, but it's about starting somewhere new and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And in the end, he really enjoyed working with it. In fact, one of our cocktails that we crafted together ended up on his actual menu, which was because I said to him, that looks very familiar. And he said, yeah, I've used that thing that we did together. And on his bar now, he's got all these little drawers, all these like really interesting ingredients that he uses. And it's just a nice process and he said, actually, you pushed me out of my comfort zone, but I've ended up creating things that I'd never have done without AI. So that was really cool. And then from there, we ended up, bizarrely, loads of people really loved our cocktails, and we ended up serving them at events all over the place. So they've been in America and Berlin, and we've served them at tech events, because it's quite a nice way to promote conversation about AI and to have something tangible and physical that you can sort of see and talk about. So yes, that worked really well. This sounds like we're some kind of like alcoholics, but we're not, honestly. The next project we did that was in this line was created the world's first AI gin. Very similar process. We trained a recurrent neural network on hundreds of sort of botanical recipes. So the gin is made up of lots of different botanicals, and there's lots of different combinations. So we used that, generated new recipes, as it were, and then we handed those over to a distillery in Bristol, like a sort of bespoke, really, really nice little distillery in Bristol that make things by hand and do small runs. So they made they took sort of two of the recipes, tried a couple out, and then chose one in the end. And that was distilled and bottled, made a run for just 1,000. And we also named it as well. So Monkus Garkle is actually named by AI, which was a really fun process. So creating the data set for the names was, there was a whole load of gin names, literally every gin name we could find, beer names. And then I threw in some star constellations and some mythical creatures to see if that would make something quite magical come out. So there's some examples of some of the names there. But they chose Monkus Garkle because they said, it sounds a bit like a gin, but it also sounds a little bit offbeat. And yes, they made it, and it tasted really good. I've got a bottle on my desk, actually. I bought a bottle to drink and a bottle to keep, and I've still got a bottle on my desk there. And it won taste awards, and it also got featured in, it literally went wild, just went all over the place. It was featured in everywhere from, it got into the Metro and even Playboy. I'm not quite sure it got into Playboy, but it got into Playboy, and it did really well for the gin, because they're just a really small little gin company. And it was, I think they really enjoyed the process as well, and said that, again, that it sort of pushed them out of their comfort zone and helped them to think about things in a different way. Cheltenham Science Festival, curator, a similar story, really. Cheltenham Science Festival was our first project that we did after the cocktails, and someone saw the cocktails in an article and said to it, she came to us, she's the the person who runs the festival, and she said, oh, we'd love it if you could create an AI guest curator. Can you do it? And obviously we weren't quite sure we could actually do it, but we said, yes, we'd love to do it. And that's what we did. So every year at the Cheltenham Science Festival, they have a range of curators. So they have guest curators. These have always been humans. And she wanted to do an AI version of this just for 1 year to see how it would go and what it could do. And what she wanted us to do was to come up with a talk suggestion from the AI using whatever data that we felt was necessary. So what we did was we decided we basically sat down one weekend, me and my co-founder, and we literally pulled out every single talk ever delivered at the Cheltenham Science Festival. So 10 years worth of talks, and we used that as the data set. And we generated a whole bunch of new talk suggestions for the Cheltenham Science Festival. They were absolutely bonkers. I'll show you some of the ones that it came out with. Aliens, what, perfume, Greenland mystery. We had things like flying without art, space of dinosaurs. I took them all up to the Cheltenham Science Festival and I said, this is the talk suggestions from the AI machine learning tool that we've created. She absolutely loved them. She's just crazy. She is quite crazy, and she's just brilliant and just wants to try loads of new things, which is really good for us. And what they decided to do in the end, they loved introvert narwhals. So we decided to then run an event at the Cheltenham Science Festival called Introvert Narwhals, and that is what happened. That was an event delivered by a natural history presenter who was really brilliant, actually. She got dressed, so we had to give our machine learning algorithm a face and a name. We called her Ada. This is her here. She's kind of like a modern take on Ada Lovelace. And the presenter dressed up as Ada and came and did this lovely talk about narwhals and whether they were introvert or not. Luckily for us, they are actually quite shy creatures, so it was okay. And then alongside that, I was on a panel and we talked about AI and culture, and we talked about music and all sorts of things with a guy from a record label and an IP lawyer from Cambridge University. So it was a really nice event, very busy and bustly and very exciting. And since then, actually, the Cheltenham Science Festival coordinator has wanted to carry Ada through. So last year she was the face of the festival because it went online. So she's been back again. And now we're working to turn her into a virtual influencer so that she can be a sort of figurehead for women in science and activism. And she's actually moving it over into the literature festival as well. So it's all very exciting that it started from something quite small, and she's now a bit of a character as part of the Cheltenham Science Festival. Also won us a gold at the DMAs, which is a really prestigious marketing awards, and we were a tiny startup at the time up against the likes of the Times and Twinings and Twitter, and we just thought we haven't got a chance in hell. But anyway, we won the award, and we had to scrape all these pennies together to go down and sit on the table so we could get our award, which was very exciting for us. But that's the Cheltenham Science Festival. And then AI art is the last thing I'm going to chat about. But AI art is again something else that has developed quite significantly over the last 3 years that I've been working in. I think there was definitely, I was thinking the day when I was writing this, that there's definitely been a kind of AI hype thing. So back in 2018, I don't know if anyone's seen this image, but this was a sort of the first piece of AI art that really hit the headlines everywhere. It's called Edmund de Bellamy. It was auctioned at Christie's. It was the first piece of AI art to be auctioned at Christie's. It's an interesting story because the guys who created it, they're called Obvious. They're a collective based in France, and it was really controversial at the time because they used a piece of code from a guy called Robbie Barrett who put it on GitHub, and they took that code and then turned it into a whole bunch of artwork, one of which then went onto Christie's. It was expected to reach, I think they expected to go for around about £12,000, and it sold for just short of $500,000. So it was absolutely mental. And the guy then who created the original code was a little bit peeved about the fact that, he'd sort of put it out there as you do, and then these guys had gone and used it and made $500,000. But it was interesting and definitely an important debate around who owns AI art and how should it be handled. So it was interesting all around for that. Nothing that I've seen has ever sold for anything like that since, and I think it's not that easy now to sell AI art. It feels like the the sort of hype of it has definitely passed. I would say now that it's sort of been superseded by the whole NFT thing, which I know there was one sold, for well over $1 million recently by an artist called Beeple, which was a collection of sort of NFTs that he'd done over every day for a year. And that's the same, and then they accepted cryptocurrency as part of the auction and the likes. But I feel like the hype phase for AI art has passed, but there's still a lot going on. There's some really gorgeous artists working in the space, which is really interesting. And even over the last few months, there's been some nice exhibitions going on in London. So I thought, actually, is there still this kind of thing around AI? And there is very much. And at the 3812 Gallery in St. James's this summer, there's been a Hong Kong-based artist called Victor Wong, who created something called AI Gemini, which is the first artificial intelligence ink artist. It took him 3 years to build this. It's more robotics really, but it took him 3 years to build this arm and machine learning program, and it basically creates completely unique pieces of art, which it's got the works are made with an ink loaded brush held by the arm, and then it creates these pieces of art which I think are really nice and look really cool. Alongside that, there's also, which is just finished actually at the Design Museum in London, the Ada portrait of the robot. And I'm not sure if you've seen Ada, but she's basically a humanoid, and she paints. So that's created a lot of lively discussion. Whether or not you like the artwork is a different thing, but I guess the point is it's just a really nice way to talk, how promote that discussion around, is it art if it's not created by a human? How do humans and AI work together in this space? And do we like it? Do we not like it? All of those things are quite important subjects in the world of AI art. So yes, that's just finished. So I think, AI art is still important, it's still interesting to a lot of people, but it's just not going to be making you millions of quid, but it's fun anyway. So I've loved exploring the world of AI art. I think deep down I'd have this real desperate need to be an artist, but I'm not that great at painting and drawing, so it's been really lovely for me to explore this space. If you ever want to create any kind of AI art, I'd really recommend something called Runway ML. It's a platform. There's a lot of free models on there that you can use. What I really like about Runway is the fact it basically hosts lots of models that you can go on and try. But what I really like is there's quite a lot of transparency around those around the models. So you can go on, you can click onto the model, you can read the research paper attached with that. To that, you can see who the people are that have created it. So you can credit them in your work if you use it. And I think it's quite nice because some of the models and tools that I've used, especially in the world of creativity, have felt a bit like a kind of black box that you never really see or understand. So I really like Runway for that, in that you've got a bit more information before you start playing with things. There's loads of stuff that you can do. There's animation, you can do text generation, you can use, there's lots of neural style transfer tools that you can try, some experimental stuff. You can also train your own models as well, which I've really loved doing that. So, starting it, you use an existing model to then train on your own data set, whatever that might want to be. Just for a bit of fun, I've taken the Brum AI logo and just played around with it very quickly yesterday. This is a Picasso inspired piece, and this is a Van Gogh inspired piece, and I think they look pretty cool actually. And yeah, there's loads you can do. So you can obviously create your own style and apply it to your own artwork, and there's loads you can do. It's just a really lovely place to play. I'm impressed. In terms of just last slide now, so in terms of training your own model, that's also been really lovely as well. I've done quite a lot in this space. These are some of the ones I've particularly enjoyed. So I've done one around Tokyo street scenes, which is what you can see on the left. The middle one I did earlier on in lockdown, actually. I wanted to see how machine learning would interpret all of my photos from lockdown and create almost like a time capsule. So I took every photo off my camera from the first lockdown, everything from like the walks that I've been on to my children's to the schoolwork that my children had to send in to school. And there's some really interesting things that came out from that. So that's my little kind of souvenir of lockdown one. And then I've also used it to generate new species of things, which I've always also quite liked. So lots of photos of flowers and then creating new types of flowers. I've tried more recently to create my own data sets. So I've been out and taken photos personally and hundreds and hundreds of photos. It takes so long to create a nice data set, but it's really fundamental to the output. But taking hundreds of photos, I feel a bit more comfortable creating art that I know that I've created the data set from scratch, rather than taking other people's work to create my own. So that's what I've done. Over lockdown, I found it quite a therapeutic process. Like, creativity and art has been fundamentally and for centuries been associated with well-being and a way of expressing yourself. And I've found that that's really worked for me during lockdown, being able to do that, to take photos, to create art. And so that's something that I'm exploring on a personal level now, like whether AI can support well-being in the way that traditional art making can. And so yeah, that's kind of my new project. So I'm delivering a workshop at Bath Digital Festival next month, and I'm also doing a 6-week art for wellbeing course starting on Tuesday, which has only got one AI module in it, but just a chance to play around. So yeah, so that's me. If you're interested in playing with AI art or jumping on any of my workshops, then give me a shout. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. And I've also just in the last few days created a website. So it's really like basic, but you can go on there and see it half baked, but skylarkcreator.io. So yeah, that's me. Thank you very much. I hope that was interesting. If you have any questions, then obviously fire away. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Karrie. That was amazing. I love the from AI logos. We're definitely using those.
Yeah, they look cool, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They're great. Does anyone have any questions?